Hi Taz, hi John. Wow, you're very fast, very early. The weird setup today. My phone is kind of like right here, and then because I don't want to get my glasses to read the comments, and then my computer is like right in front of me, and the camera is over there, so it's going to be like a whole trippy experience, looking um, in different directions. Well, I don't know why I'm up. Well, I know why I'm up because I screwed up my sleep schedule by being sick and sleeping till 5 p.m. one day. And when that happens to me, that usually tends to stick for a while. There is an air raid in Kyiv right now for anyone who's interested, and it's Shahed drones. Hi, Joe, which means that I personally am not going to be going to the bomb shelter, at least not unless something like crazy is happening. I just heard some air defense working, which I believe is literally machine guns. And hi, Debbie. And yeah, so that's fun. But it is what it is, and mm, before January 20th, 2025. Well, we will see. We'll see. Extrano. Extrano says the Kerch Bridge is coming down before January 20th, 2025. I mean, you would think. Oh, hi, Pam. Oh my gosh. You would think, but I really don't know. I really don't know if that's the case. We will see. We definitely should do something before Trump is in office, but I don't know what the plans of this government are. I think they have been pretty unpredictable lately. Look at Kursk. And that whole ordeal. Hi, Kristen. Oh my gosh. Yeah, you made it. But yeah. See, like the weird thing about not going to air raid shelters when there is an air raid, and just for the record, I absolutely do not advise anyone to do that. I just don't go for Shahed drones because, I mean, I would be underground all the freaking time if that was the case. Okay, give me 1 second. This setup is like it's tripping me out because I have to constantly change directions of where I look. So I'm gonna change one little thing, one little bit. Sorry, you can look at my pores in the meanwhile. Oh my god, what is this? Okay. But yeah, here I think I figured it out. 1 second. Okay, I think I figured it out. I think I figured out how I can do this without like, doing too crazy of a thing and actually being able to look in the same, like not have to look way too. Okay, so this is probably better. Yeah, this seems better. My dogs just need to like not jump places, but this is much better. Like this is closer. Okay, sorry, I should probably do this before the live starts, not like during it. But yeah, so the weird thing about like not going to the bomb shelter during stuff like Shahed drones is well, I'm not going because I would literally be living underground if that was the case. But also because it's like you have to listen in on what's happening outside, because obviously if there's like too many Shahed drones or if it's like flying close, you can hear it. Kind of sounds like a really old car with like a really bad motor. It's crackling. It's this like crackling sound of like a bad motor. Kind of sounds like like an old motorbike. So you listen in for these things, and you listen in for air defense, which is what I'm doing right now because I've heard I've heard a couple of explosions, so that was air defense working. But sometimes like regular household sounds happen, or someone like is like tumbling upstairs or something like that, and it trips you because you're like, wait, was that air defense or was it just like some noise coming from somewhere in your building? Also, that's always fun. Also, garbage trucks and like all of these things, it screws with you quite a bit. But really, if I were to go to the bomb shelter, especially in the past 2 weeks, every time there was an air raid alert for Shahed drones, I would probably literally be living underground. um Thank you for sharing the live, and also thank you guys for commenting and showing up and saying hello. I really appreciate everyone. Okay, so on YouTube, hi Taz, hi John, hi Prexis, hi Taz again, hi Kristen, hi Legend Zero, hi Don. Oh my gosh, Don, good to see you. It's been a while. Also, hello everybody on TikTok. Sorry, comments here scroll faster, so it's not like I see absolutely everyone. Hi, KT. Yeah, I watched a movie today that I actually posted on my community tab on YouTube that I suggested you guys watch because I think it's genuinely such a good movie. And oh, that's so cool. So, um, wait, JT Hay, JT Hay in the comments actually was talking to me about this movie because they watch it every single Thanksgiving. And the movie is called Mr. Jones, and it's about well, it's really focused centered on one journalist, right? But it's about so much more than just a journalist. It's about Jenna. Okay, so Jenna. Okay, so hi Jenna. So also Don Smith. Oh my gosh, thank you so much on YouTube for gifting 5 memberships to the channel. I really appreciate it, and so do I'm sure the people that got the membership gifted to them. And I'll just take a minute right now so we get it out of the way. Because I hate doing this, but I also feel like I need to do this because if I don't do this, nothing happens out of it, right? But if you have the ability to send super chats or video gifts or buy the TikTok membership thingy for lives or YouTube membership, to TikTok live subscription, I really do encourage it if you have the ability to, because that does help me float quite a lot. Social media is a big part of my income, and the thing is, like, this is not like if you saw my, like, I made $2 in a video the other day, and that's a lot. So like that's a good video because my RPM is about 10 cents per 1,000 views, and I'm also shadow banned for like a year now. So yeah, so if you have the ability to subscribe to these features or send gifts, or anything like that, it really does help, especially if it's like buying subscriptions or memberships, because that helps plan for the future, because you kind of know what it's like this month and next month because it's monthly. Right, not like not a one-time thing. So I do really appreciate it. Thank you for the dolphin. Melissa, also good to see you. And hi Nicole, and hi, yeah, hello everyone. Oh my gosh, Nicole, congratulations on your baby girl. That's awesome. That's such good news. I love dolphins. I don't think I've ever seen a dolphin in person. I like dolphins. I've gone to like a dolphinarium when I was a child, like an oceanarium or something like that. But I don't think I've ever seen a dolphin in person. But yeah, so I watched a movie today that was recommended to me based on a story of a journalist that I posted on TikTok the other day. So the story that I posted was about Walter Duranty, who was a New York Times correspondent for the Soviet Union. And in the 1930s, he got a Pulitzer Prize for his work and correspondence with the Soviet Union. In reality, this Pulitzer Prize should be rescinded because it was not work and correspondence with the Soviet Union. It was actually lies. Also, thank you for following. It was lies that he was publishing, and Russia was paying him for it. And Russia was, oh my gosh. Thank you, Roller. Also, that was so cool. Thank you for the train. Thank you so much. That was actually so cool and so unexpected. Thank you. But so, yes, Walter Duranty was a journalist. He was a Pulitzer Prize winner. His Pulitzer, there was a huge push to rescind his Pulitzer, but they never did. The New York Times did do some damage control, and I'm actually gonna, I'm gonna, after I tell you the story, I'm gonna read what the New York Times said, which I think is so pathetic because it doesn't seem genuine. It seems like damage control. So he was a New York Times correspondent in the 30s, went to the Soviet Union a lot. Basically, Stalin had paid him to write reports about the Soviet Union that were not accurate and not true. Also, Walter Duranty only hung out in Moscow, and he knew that he's not seeing any of the Soviet Union other than Moscow, and he was being wined and dined, and he was like kind of participating in a lot of brothels and all of this stuff. So clearly, he knew because he's not an idiot, that this is like a very different type of lifestyle than everybody else in the Soviet Union lives, and that it's weird that the Soviet government would not let you see any other places other than Moscow, right? And that foreign journalists were only confined to Moscow. So when Holodomor was happening, for instance, he wrote a report that the Holodomor wasn't happening, and that it's not true, and that everything is fine in the Soviet Union, and that there was just like some shortage of grain, but it's actually pretty okay. Thank you, KT. Thank you so much. So Walter Duranty is an asshole, and he's basically the Tucker Carlson of 1930s. He knew exactly what he was doing, and he knew exactly what he was writing. He was a Soviet sympathizer. He was like enjoying being wined and dined, and writing coverage for one of the largest Western newspapers that was whitewashing the Soviet Union. But I'm gonna get to, so I also mentioned another journalist, Gareth Jones, who did not get a Pulitzer, who wasn't lying, who actually wrote the truth. And he had a really hard journey to uncover that truth. And he risked his life multiple times to publish that truth. And in the end of the day, he actually received a bullet and died by some Chinese agents that were connected to NKVD, who kidnapped him and killed him. But so before I get there, because this is what the movie is about, and while I was mentioning Gareth Jones and his fantastic work, someone was like, hey, have you seen Mr. Jones, which is a movie? And I was like, no, I have not. And I think it's a brilliant movie, not because it's like a movie in fiction and like whatever. It's brilliant because of how many very, very important topics it illustrates through just integrating them into the storyline. So before I do that, I'm going to read you the stupid New York Times. In New York Times, Walter Duranty, Pulitzer. So I absolutely love the way that they did the damage control over this situation, right? So okay. New York Times statement about 1932 Pulitzer Prize awarded to Walter Duranty. Duranty, one of the most famous correspondents of his day, won the prize for 13 articles written in 1931 analyzing the Soviet Union under Stalin. Times correspondents and others have since largely discredited his coverage. I love that they're saying Duranty, one of the most famous correspondents of his time, so they're still kind of praising him, while also saying that New York Times and others have since largely discredited his coverage. Are you kidding me? Duranty's cable dispatches had to pass Soviet censorship, and Stalin's propaganda machine was powerful and omnipresent. So then, if he knew that he was being censored, and he knew that he was not writing the truth, he was writing what Stalin wanted him to write, then this is not an excuse. Just leave and stop doing it. Or if you want to actually do something, then stop. Don't accept the Pulitzer for the work that you know is false. And actually, I don't know, maybe risk your life to show the truth. And if you don't want to do that, then just leave and go to another country and do coverage in another country. Duranty's analysis relied on official sources, and his primary source of information, accounting for the most significant flaw in his coverage, his consistent underestimation of Stalin's brutality. Describing the communist plan to liquidate the 5 million kulaks, relatively well-off farmers opposed to the Soviet collectivization of agriculture. Duranty wrote in 1931, for example, must all of them and their families be physically abolished? Of course not. They must be liquidated or melted in the hot fire or exile and labor into the proletarian mass. Taking Soviet propaganda at face value, this way was completely misleading, as talking with ordinary Russians might have revealed even at the time. Duranty's prize-winning articles quoted not a single one, only Stalin, who forced farmers all over the Soviet Union into collective farms and sent those who resisted to concentration camps. So he literally won a Pulitzer for publishing propaganda, straight from Stalin's mouth, straight through the censorship, and knew this as well. Collectivization was the main cause of the famine that killed millions of people in Ukraine, the Soviet breadbasket, in 1932 and 1933, 2 years after Duranty won his prize. Even then, Duranty dismissed more diligent writers' reports that people were starving, conditions are bad, but there is no famine. He wrote in a dispatch from Moscow in March of 1933 describing the mess of collectivization, but to put it brutally, you can't make an omelet without breaking eggs. Yeah, people literally just dropping dead on the streets because that's what was happening, is you can't make an omelet without breaking eggs, for sure. Some of Duranty's editors criticized his reporting as tendentious, but the Times kept him as a correspondent until 1941. Since the 1980s, the paper has been publicly acknowledging his failures. Ukrainian American and other organizations have repeatedly called on Pulitzer Prize Board to cancel Duranty's prize and the Times to return it. mainly on the ground of his later failure to report the famine. Well, maybe not. Maybe because he won the prize by lying and you're admitting that he won the prize by lying. Like, you're not even, this is not even like in between the lines. You're literally saying this man was continuously lying. The Pulitzer Board has twice declined to withdraw the award, most recently in November 2003, finding no clear and convincing evidence of deliberate deception. In the 1931 reporting that won the prize, and the Times does not have the award in its possession. Yeah. Safe face. From the New York Times. It's like, yeah, so he was lying. We know he was lying. Everyone knows that he was lying. We are not going to, Ukrainian Americans have been requesting the Pulitzer to rescind his award. Those Ukrainian Americans, largely because he wasn't covering the genocide, right? In fact, he was denying it. So these Ukrainian Americans, they just want the award to be canceled. The New York Times, who published these articles, could be writing to the Pulitzer Board saying, actually, you should rescind this award because it was coverage based on lies. This man knew he was being censored. We know he was being censored. There is zero clue. There is zero way that he didn't know he was being censored while spending all of his time being wined and dined and effing prostitutes in Moscow. While, reporting on a famine that he hasn't even seen because he was not allowed to go to any areas other than Moscow. How can you freaking report on a famine that's happening in rural Soviet Union, aka Ukraine, if you are not even allowed to go see it for yourself? He was, he was misled. He just didn't know. So if I write an article right now on the state of the affairs at the Pentagon, having never been at the Pentagon and just relying on the testimony of the Pentagon chief, like, am I actually writing the real report about the Pentagon? No. Brian says, honestly, doesn't sound like the New York Times has changed its journalism standards much since then. I actually think that they dropped because the New York Times publishes propaganda all the freaking time. And I mean, such evident, brutal propaganda. But so this is where we arrive at Gareth Jones and this movie called Mr. Jones. And I posted it in my community tab for those of you who are on YouTube. And I really, really, really implore you to watch it when you have time. And I mean, like, genuinely, it's one of the best movies I've ever seen in my entire life. And like, you guys have asked me a lot of times what's my favorite movie. And I'm always like, oh, I don't have favorites, because I genuinely don't. Like, I like a lot of things, right? And I am going to say that this is genuinely one of the best films I've seen in my lifetime. And the reason for that is not just the story. It's because this film really encompasses everything that was happening in one story. So there's so many scenes from this movie that I would want to showcase, and I actually want to record an episode if I have time with Robbie. Robbie being Rob Gadet being my my colleague, discussing this movie because I forced him to watch it today too, and he oh, thank you, Winston, so much. I forced him to watch it today, and he actually did, and he really enjoyed it, and he also watched it in one sitting, being glued to the TV. But basically, it covers the story of Walter Jones. Of Gareth Jones. He was an advisor in the UK government to the current prime minister at the time, and he was basically going to the Soviet Union because he wanted to interview Stalin. He interviewed Hitler before, and as an advisor to the current at the time government of the UK, I believe it was Lloyd Johnson who was the prime minister. He was ringing the alarm bell, saying, hey guys, the new big war has already started. As an AKA, we're about to be in World War II. He was laughed out of the room for saying that. Like, all of the UK officials were laughing at him. They were like, yeah, right, okay, you're crazy. This is not the case. He was explaining why this is the case and why this is just... this is what's happening, and everyone was just dismissing him and laughing at him, and like, he was 27 or 28 years old, so they were just like, oh, you're young and dumb, right? So he was like, okay, well, if I can convince people of that, I really want to go talk to Stalin and kind of just like explore these, dictator regimes and how they're gaining momentum and strength. So he wanted to go interview Stalin. While he went to the USSR and his journalism visa was approved, he came there to see a friend, another fellow journalist who was very famous, who was working in the Soviet Union for quite a while. And that friend actually was killed. And so he was wondering what it was that he was killed for. And he discovered that this friend, who was a journalist, was working on a story about a famine in Ukraine. So he obviously decided that he wants to take this to the end, and he wants to work on the story of this famine, and he wants to figure out what's happening because things weren't adding up to him. And after talking to Walter Duranty and seeing that he's like, in brothels with prostitutes, he's like, eating caviar and drinking champagne and constantly staying at this luxury hotel in Moscow. And he has never been anywhere else in the collective Soviet Union, not just Russia, just in the Soviet Union. And he's writing all of this coverage saying everything is fine. He was like, what the hell? You haven't been anywhere other than these like luxury places where the leadership is clearly like taking you out for a ride, right? And you've been here forever. And so he was trying to get access to go to Ukraine. No one was granting him that access. And then he basically got on the train and he to go somewhere else where like the authorities authorized him to go, which was like to see factories where 6 British engineers were working to show like the progress of Stalin's Soviet Union. And at some point, at some stop, after him and like the Russian official that was, riding him around, were drinking vodka, or like the official was drinking vodka and he wasn't, the official fell asleep and he got off at a random stop and he got on a train that had like regular people, it wasn't like a first class, like elite train. It was just like a regular train where he could get to Yuzovka, which is Yuzivka, which is a city in Donetsk region, and it's named after John Hughes, who is this man who developed Donbass. Largely is responsible for helping develop Donbass because he was a Welsh businessman, and also Gareth Jones was also Welsh. He was a Welsh businessman who was like developing this area, and he had a lot of factories and stuff like that. And so he wanted to go there because that's where like famine was really, really bad. And he ended up getting on the train. And there is this one scene in this movie that really, I think, illustrates things very well, where he has heard about hunger and he wanted to know if there was hunger, right? And he's sitting on this train and he has his like little backpack. And in this backpack, he has an orange. And there are all of these kids and all of these people like kind of stuffed in this car of this like train. This car of this train, right? He starts peeling the orange and all of the people are staring at him because they haven't seen food at all in like ages. So he peels the orange and he throws out the orange peels, and all of these people, like ants, they just attack this orange peel because it's food. And he's sitting there, and this is a brilliant illustration of sort of the magnitude of the famine, right? Like this scene probably didn't happen, but the reality is that this was the case in Ukraine, and they illustrated it perfectly because it was a swarm of people attacking this orange peel, which is not even food, but for them it is because it's they haven't seen food. So he ended up giving them an orange, the orange, and he didn't eat it himself. And then he didn't have his coat because he left it on the train. So he asked a man on the train if he can buy a coat from him, and he pulls out money to give him the money, and he goes, "I can't do anything with this. Do you have bread?" And this is also very telling because he couldn't do anything with this. And if he brought money to buy something, he would be prosecuted and executed because the gendarmes that were guarding Ukrainians and preventing them from eating and preventing them from collecting crops and collecting all of these things. Haha. Some Russian troll says, yeah, because Ukraine was farthest away from the capital. No, it was not, honey bunny. Half of, like, literally most of Russia is farther away from Moscow than Ukraine is. And Ukraine is also the breadbasket of Europe, and we were producing grain with the same magnitude we always were. Russia was taking it away from us and sending it to Moscow. So no, your propaganda here is not going to work. I'm a little too knowledgeable for you. Anyways, so the point is that basically he like this man asked him for bread because if he had given him money and this man came with money to buy something, the gendarmes would know that he's just a regular farmer, or he's just a regular, like village person, and and they would be like, where did you get this? And so that would be suspicious. So he was like, do you have bread? Money is no good for me. Like, do you have bread? So he found like a piece of bread and gave it to him. And I mean, again, this situation might have not happened, although this movie was filmed off of the diaries that Gareth Jones left about his adventures, in the Soviet Union. So he documented all of this. So a lot of these stories might have actually happened. So then when he gets to Ukraine, when he gets to Yuzovka, the first thing that he sees when he gets off the train is that there are people literally dropping dead on the streets, and no one's doing anything about it. It's just like another regular Monday night for you. And the reason why is because this has become so common. And if you had paid attention to every dead body you find that on the street that dropped dead, привіт, я також з України, that you find that would drop dead on the street, like you wouldn't, it would just be too much, because again, millions of people were dying. It was an artificially created, imposed hunger with the goal of unaliving these people. So that was the first kind of like thing that alarmed him a lot. And then he saw that there is a lot of grain being loaded onto the train, onto these like vehicles of sorts, right? And so he comes up and he's like, where is this grain going? And someone responds to him, to Moscow. So everything starts ringing a bell to him that it's an artificial famine where people are starving, but the grain is there, so people don't have to be starving, right? Movie name, Mr. Jones. It's on Amazon Prime for free, and it's also apparently on Peacock for free right now. So he ends up getting chased because, like, he's being someone had kind of one of the people that was loading grain was like, oh, I think this foreigner is a spy, because he spoke like broken Russian with an accent. But the interesting thing that I really, really liked about this movie, and something that differentiates it from all of the other movies, is that when he got to Ukraine, all of the people that were in Ukraine, all of the characters that he has met in Ukraine, were not speaking Russian. They were speaking Ukrainian, which is true. And it's true to the time, because everyone in the villages was speaking Ukrainian. It's the people in the cities that were basically being brainwashed that if you speak Ukrainian, you're like a redneck, you're not educated, you have to speak Russian. Russian is the language of success and education, and Ukrainian is just the language of rednecks, right? Thank you so much, Laka. And so I really loved it, and it wasn't broken Ukrainian. It wasn't, for the first time in my like conscious existence, I have seen a movie where like it wasn't dubbing, or it wasn't American people speaking broken Ukrainian that they have that they have learned and memorized from like the lines where it just sounds awkward, right? And they're barely pronouncing things. It was actually Ukrainians dubbing and Ukrainians speaking. So it was fantastic to see, and it's very respectful, and it's amazing. And this movie came out in 2019. So that was before the full-scale invasion. Thank you so much, Tom. So that was before the full-scale invasion, which is even more amazing. So so then he kind of like continues traveling through these villages. He finds more kids that are all like starving. He has his camera, he takes pictures. He at some point walks up a road in the snow and sees this like carriage where like this man and is like riding a carriage, right? And like two other men are with him, and then they see a dead body on like dropped dead in the middle of just like this pathway. And there is a kid crying, mom, mom, because the dead body is his mother or her mother. And they just load the body onto the cart, and they load the kid onto the cart, and they don't even flinch. And he realizes that this is so common, that they see this all the time, and that's why they don't flinch. So he's just like kind of starting to realize that it is a really big deal, that yeah, in fact, Moscow isn't starving, Russia isn't starving. Hi, thank you so much, Mr. G. Russia isn't starving, Moscow isn't starving, that it's just that it is targeted. So, I mean, there are obviously a lot more things happening to him in Ukraine. It's a 2-hour movie, but then at the end of the day, he gets caught by the Russian officials, and they normally would do the same to him as they did to his friend before him. But because he was the advisor to the Prime Minister of Great Britain, they couldn't necessarily. The movie is called Mr. Jones. It's on Amazon Prime and on Peacock for free. They couldn't necessarily execute him because that would be a little too public. So through a series and rounds of negotiations, basically they decided to let him go. But they did tell him that if he ever writes about what he has actually seen and you know, the actual genocide that he has seen happening, they will execute 6 British factory workers that they had just detained, saying they're spies, but they were collateral damage and blackmail. So he comes back to the UK and he deliberates on what to do because he's like, hey, you know, this is going to kill 6 people that are innocent, but also not doing this will kill millions of people. And maybe doing this is going to kill 6 people, but it's also going to save millions of lives. So he doesn't know what to do. So he actually, at the end of the day, decides to write an article. And this is true, he did write the article saying that Russia is suffering from a famine, which is an article that Walter Duranty then wrote a rebuttal article to. And of course, people took him more seriously because he's a freaking Pulitzer Prize winner. But so he wrote this article. He started getting in a lot of trouble with the government because everyone and their mother in the British, between the British officials, started coming to him and being like, listen, you are like writing this stuff and we cannot afford to have this published because we don't want a confrontation with Russia. Like, what are you thinking? Like, even if it's true, like, we don't want a confrontation with Russia. Like, we don't want Stalin on our backs. And they were minimizing it. And this rings so true to today because, you know, it's like anytime drone debris falls in Romania off a Russian drone, it's like, oh, actually, the drone was taken down over Ukraine and the debris just accidentally crossed the Romanian border. Oh, there is a drone in Polish airspace. There is a missile that landed in Poland. It was actually Ukrainian air defense. Like, oh, Russia shot an ICBM. No. Really, what ICBM? It was actually an intermediate range missile. So it really not a big deal. So it's kind of the same thing that they were doing then. It's like they were trying to minimize it in order to not have a confrontation with Russia. And it worked the exact same way. And it was so like eye-opening to see this because, yeah, sure, these scenes in the movie are dramatized, but these are real events, and you can look up his real story. You can look up his real story, and these events did happen. He was censored. He was censored by the British government, and then basically big newspapers would refuse to publish him because he was not credible. And because, you know, Walter Duranty was writing that there is no such thing happening. And of course, he's such a respected Pulitzer Prize winner. But another newspaper did agree to publish him. And it was a smaller newspaper. And it was like, I think the only newspaper that agreed to publish him. And that newspaper, he posted pictures that he took in Russia and in Ukraine. And he was really doubling down and showing what's happening. He also did do a speech when he was an advisor in the government, and he said, you know, like, this is going to my coverage is going to cost lives of 6 people. And I think that letting Russia do what Russia wants and letting Russia blackmail us today is going to echo in Russia thinking they could do whatever the hell they want, and we're going to pay for that in the future. And so appeasing Russia is really not a solution, like the Soviet Union. And it's so funny because it rings true today as well. And, you know, it rings true to me so much because he said that the big war already started. You were just in denial. And I keep saying this all the time now in 2024. And a lot of people are just like, you're crazy. And I kind of feel like Gareth Jones in this way. I just hope that, you know, NKVD is not going to kill me through Chinese spies or whatever. But the point is, like, he was ringing all of these alarm bells and no one was listening to him. And everyone was censoring him because it was inconvenient, it was risky, and they were okay with letting so many millions of people die. And they were okay with burying this evidence that he has seen with his own eyes, instead of actually publishing this, because they don't want to have didn't want to have inconveniences with Russia. And it's absolutely crazy. And there are a lot more moments in this movie that were just fascinating, and like the ways that things were depicted, how censorship was depicted, how propaganda was depicted, how the way that governments are tiptoeing around Russia was depicted. And it's like, Russia didn't invade Ukraine in 2019, so at that point it wasn't like really meant to draw parallels to today. Also, in 2019 we were not in the same situation. Well, Russia invaded Ukraine in 2014, but as in like the full scale invasion didn't happen then. And like we were not in the same situation worldwide as we are today. Hi, Stuart. Oh my God, so good to see you. So it's amazing to see a movie like that be done in 2019 and have so many parallels to today and describe it so, so, so amazingly. Where it like it's eye opening. Like this movie was driving me crazy with how accurately it was representing a lot of the events. How you would be in Moscow and you would be trying to like get information, and people in Moscow, the officials, would literally tell you, no, but here's what we can show you, and you can write a puff piece about this. And so that this is very much propaganda and you're being very much censored. Thank you for being a member for a month, Alms. That's so cool. Genuinely, thank you very much on YouTube. So there is a lot in that movie that was just like freaking fascinating. And I think that honestly, a lot of people should be watching this movie, and a lot of people can see that it's sort of like Russia does the same thing over and over again. It's been almost 100 years. This happened in 1933. It's been almost 100 years. It's been 92. And Russia was buying journalists then to write propaganda for them, and the West was tiptoeing around Russia in order to not have an altercation with it, willing to minimize everything that Russia was doing. And today, Russia is buying journalists, we live in a different world, so kind of like, media personalities like Tucker Carlson and Joe Rogan and Jackson Hinkle, and like to name just a few, Kim.com, whatever, to spew their narratives. And it's the same thing. And the West is still tiptoeing around Russia. Again. And it's like, we are making the exact same mistake. We're stepping onto the exact same path. And it's like painful to see. And then there are journalists, and these journalists have a lot of views and exposure and all of this stuff, because of course in the 1930s Russia was picking and choosing journalists from big publications, so they would have that viewership, right, and paying them off. And today Russia just basically pays off bloggers, and Russia gives them engagement and gives them followers and gives them viewers. If they come with those already, that's great. They'll just multiply it. Russia just will help them multiply it. But in general, they're doing the same thing. And then the journalists that are actually saying the truth, like Gareth Jones was, they have no views, no exposure. People call them crazy. People laugh them out of the room because they're too young, too stupid, don't understand, whatever, right? And it's really funny because a lot of the times that I explain to people that we are actually in World War III, because people don't understand what a world war is. It doesn't mean that there are nukes flying everywhere, and it doesn't mean that there are trenches everywhere. It's ideological. And we are already seeing tensions. And what's funny? It's like in World War II, people definitely weren't sitting there and being like, seems like World War II is starting, until it literally started. Native, Katya, until it literally started. And it's the same thing that's happening today. And I experienced the same thing as this journalist did, which I related to him so much, because people will tell me that I'm crazy. People will tell me that I'm warmongering. People will silence me. People will, social media silences me. Similarly to how this man was silenced by governments and all of this stuff. It's like, it's the same censorship, right? And then and then people also tell me that I don't get it because I'm young. And it's like, I don't understand. And it's like, they've been on this earth for longer. So it's just like, I'm just an alarmist and whatever. And the same was happening to this guy. And it was kind of so validating to see this movie. And outside of me just relating to him personally, it was a great movie based on the reality of what it showed as the conditions in the Soviet Union in the 1930s. So it was, also, thank you for following. it was really interesting. It's honestly one of the absolute best movies I've seen in a while. And so then I was making a video on TikTok, and I have found that Gareth Jones, great nephew, in 2023, he's Welsh, wrote an article for a Welsh newspaper basically saying that Ukrainian ultra nationalists used his great uncle's coverage to satisfy their agenda of making, I don't know, Bandera and whoever seem legitimize Bandera and whoever through like his coverage of Holodomor, and that Holodomor was everywhere in Russia too. And even if you read his uncle's diaries, it's very clear that some of the first days of his trip to Ukraine to see the Holodomor, he was actually staying in Russia, where famine was also present in Belgorod. Belgorod is on the border with Ukraine. Yes, there was famine in Belgorod residually, because they didn't want Ukrainians to fucking cross to Belgorod to find food. So yeah, they were collateral damage. But it was so freaking funny. It was not even funny. It was like infuriating, but it was also funny because this guy was using like all of Russia's propaganda. The Nazis, the Nazis, the Ukrainian friendship with Nazis, Bandera, the neo-nationalists, Ukrainian diaspora who was apparently paying for this movie to be made, and that his uncle's like heritage, great uncle's heritage, is not being used in the correct way, and that this is what he actually meant, and this is what he actually has seen, and blah blah. And I'm like, were you there? But also, like, it was like the most. One sec, I think. Okay, Maeve. Okay, Baba, give me a second. I need to plug in my computer before YouTube dies. But so yeah, it was just this guy basically spewing like every single, and it wasn't even like well written in terms of like, oh, maybe he's right. He's just like trying to defend his uncle, and he thinks that like Ukrainians, misunderstood his reporting and decided to like use it in our favor or something. Like, no, it was I'm surprised this man did not mention biolabs from like the 1930s. I actually, you know what? I'm gonna try to find the article. Gareth Jones' nephew. Where was this? Oh, okay. Are you prepared? Ukrainian nationalists distorted the truth of my great uncle Gareth Jones. Now the Senedd is too. And I find it so freaking funny because it's like, dude, it seems like this guy has like, his great uncle Gareth Jones, and he is like a credible witness because it's his great uncle, right? The guy is cash poor. Russia offers him money, and he's like, yep, sure. Let me pick every single freaking narrative that I can in order to like make the sound legitimate. So here we go. As the Welsh Parliament prepares to mark Ukrainian Holodomor Memorial Day, Philip Coley, the great nephew of Gareth Jones, the Welsh journalist who brought the man-made famine to the world's attention, argues that truth is being sacrificed on the altar of nationalist interests. So the thing is that there are, like, most of the countries worldwide have recognized Holodomor as the artificial genocide, man-made genocide of the Ukrainian people, because there is an overwhelming amount of evidence, right? And this guy is just like, nah, sorry, this is only being credited as just a famine and just a genocide against Ukrainians because of this movie and because of the diaries of my uncle. Man. But so, okay, here. Blah, blah, blah. The famine Gareth reported on, now known as the Holodomor, was declared to be a genocide by the Welsh Senate on the 25th of October in the emotive session, but one that was entirely political and devoid of any serious historical analysis. Right. We have a whole museum of Holodomor with a lot of historical, serious analysis and a lot of evidence. And there is evidence worldwide of this actually having happened. But sure, go on. It was also one that misrepresented Gareth's story. After Gareth's murder in 1935, like the Great Soviet Famine he reported on, Gareth was forgotten by the world. but not by his family. From a young age, I was regaled with stories about a clearly special relative from his surviving sisters, my grandmother Arian and my great aunt Gwyneth. From my mother, too, she had worshipped her uncle and never really came to terms with his untimely death. As a retirement project in 2000, she began researching his story and writing his official biography. What she found out, my brother Nigel put online. Thank you for following, you guys. Their discovery of Gareth coincided with the start of the memory management campaign begun in 2004 by then President Yushchenko, in which he sought to provide the newly independent Ukraine with a new national story. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. The fact that the Soviet Union was systematically killing Ukrainians and Holodomor is just one example of that. There were also 3 Holodomors. It's just we talk about the Holodomor, which is 1932-33, because it was the most extensive one and it killed the most people, but it was also done in the 20s and it was also done in the 40s. There were also the 60 years, which is like Ukrainian elite was being murdered, and there are hundreds of thousands of people that were just that are buried in forests in Ukraine. They were executed, they were imprisoned. Yeah, it's just sure. It's this was just like coinkydink, and it was just we're looking for a national story. Sure, okay. The Soviet view of Ukraine's history was jettisoned, and in its place, historical myths fostered over the years by the diaspora were elevated to state policy. One aim of this campaign was to try and airbrush out of history the accepted historical fact that the Organization of Ukrainian Nationalists, led by the fascist and anti-Semite Stepan Bandera, and its armed wing, the UPA, had not just modeled themselves on the Nazis, but also had collaborated with them in the murder of 1.5 million Ukrainian Jews. Not in truth! And also slaughtered countless Poles. Ukrainian ultranationalists who had hitherto rightly been vilified for the mass murder of Jews were suddenly turned into the national heroes. I can't even, I don't even know, this is an extensive article, right? But this guy is not being hey, he didn't actually report on this. This famine was this famine was all over the Soviet Union. No. This guy is Ukrainian Nazis, Bandera, Jews, Ukrainian history doesn't exist. Ukraine was just a mere freaking product of the Soviet Union. They needed a new history, so they created this narrative. It's just so funny because sorry. In the end, our family became split and broken, arguably like Ukraine itself today, on the altar of Ukrainian diaspora memory politics. Worldwide historians learning the history of Ukraine, finally, de-Russifying history in general, historians agreeing and researching this and having tons of proof of what Ukraine's history was like. There are pictures, there is documentation, there are literally numbers of dead people that are verified, right, through this Holodomor and other executions by the Soviet Union. And this man is saying that that this is the altar of Ukrainian diaspora memory politics. But it's also this is written so dramatically. It's so funny because this could have been believable if this guy did not try to insert every Stepan Bandera for no reason. Absolutely no reason. Also, the funny thing is that at the time which he's describing, Ukraine was actually the west of Ukraine was actually under Poland. Stepan Bandera and Lviv were under Poland and didn't join the Soviet Union or weren't forced into the Soviet Union until 1939. So, but that has nothing to do with this. Literally nothing to do with this. Holodomor has nothing to do with that. Not a single freaking thing. Nothing. Nada. So, but of course, you have to tie in Ukrainian Nazis somewhere, right? The issue that caused the split of their family was one of many myths that have grown up around Gareth, namely the idea that his murder by the bandits in Inner Mongolia in 1935 was engineered by the Soviet NKVD as the revenge for his reporting on the famine. That theory fits perfectly in with the image of him as a martyr that now reigns in Ukraine, where the mythologizing of Garrett has caused him to attain an almost Christ-like status. He doesn't have a Christ-like status. Actually, a lot of people don't know who he is. Yeah, there is a street in Kyiv named after him. There is also a street in there's also a street in Donetsk named after John Hughes. There are streets in other places in Ukraine named after John Hughes, and people don't know who John Hughes is. We also have George Washington Street in Ukraine. We have Boris Johnson Street in Ukraine. He's not Christ-like. But it's funny that he's like writing this as if this was like, oh, Ukraine made him a martyr. Like, dude, yeah, he wrote about a famine in the Soviet Union that the Soviet Union was hiding. Even if you were saying that the famine was countrywide and it had nothing to do with Ukraine, and Ukraine is just like trying to make up history over this makes no sense for you to say, because the Soviet Union would still want to execute him for spilling the secrets that they deliberately were not were like blackmailing him over to not publish. Like, what? Thank you for following, Braylon, and also thank you for the gift. How is my Portuguese? No bueno. Gareth was warned by 2 different British military attachés, as well as the Chinese authorities, under no circumstances to go to Manchukuo border area, as it was infested by bandits. But tragically, for all of us, he ignored their advice. Another myth fostered is that Garrett was only reporting on famine in the Ukraine. I think this tells you everything you need to know. Another myth fostered is that Gareth was only reporting on famine in the Ukraine. In terms of proportion of the population, apart from Kazakhstan, that is without doubt where most of the deaths occurred, in one of the most unimaginably distressing events in history. But millions also died of starvation elsewhere, including in Russia. And though it seems to have been deliberately forgotten now, Gareth reported on their suffering as well. Tell Them We Are Starving, the title of a book of his transcribed famine diaries, is actually based on a plea from a German colonist. In truth, he was a hero for all the victims of Stalinism at the time, Russia as well as Ukraine, whatever. Even 20 minutes away from Moscow, there was no bread, he wrote. As well as what he saw in Ukraine, he provided witness statements from starving Russian peasants from Nizhny Novgorod and Crimea, then part of Russia before it was gifted by Khrushchev to the Soviet Union in 1954. In fact, much of Garrett's famous 3-day, Crimea was literally not supplied with anything. It was, by the time that it was given to Ukraine, it was like a shithole. They had no water. I mean, Russia made it a shithole. It's not that Crimea is a shithole before Ukraine came there. Like, no. Russia made, it was a prospering peninsula. Russia made it into a shithole. Anyways, he then says that he was on, it was also in Belgrade and in these cities which are literally on the border. He also says that the reason why so many Ukrainians died is simply because they were unwilling to accept collectivization. And that was the issue. Yeah, so Russia forced Ukraine into the Soviet Union. We didn't want to be there. Russia took us over, then came to our farmers and came to people that were earning a decent living and were producing food and were selling things and trading and making money and like living a good life, took all of that away and was like, you know what? Now you're going to be working for Moscow and we're going to be taking everything you have, including your farms. You don't no longer own them. You work for us. And we're going to be taking everything that you have and starving you. Because that's just what we want. And Ukrainians, how freaking dare they? Those bastards, they were refusing to accept collectivization. So for that reason, that's why they died. It was not an artificially man-made famine. It was really just them bastards not accepting collectivization. In the October 25th debate, which preceded the Senate decision to recognize the Ukrainian famine as genocide, there was little or no attempt to engage in any serious analysis or explore the nuances of such a complex historical event. Oh yeah, nuances of such a complex historical event. It was without a doubt an appalling humanitarian crime, but the jury of historians remains very much out as to whether it was genocide. No, it really isn't. Nonetheless, the word genocide was mentioned some 24 times, as if the mention of it was enough to prove their point. Uh, it, I mean, like, I think this is enough, right? Like, this is enough. This is enough to explain what this man what this man was writing and how he was framing this, right? I absolutely love the Ukraine. I absolutely love the mention of Bandera, which like legitimately has nothing to do with any of this. But of course, you have to tie him in there because it wouldn't be Russian propaganda if you didn't. And then Ukraine needed history, so they used my uncle. Like, honey, your uncle's report is this much of Ukraine's history. Jesus Christ. Ukraine's diaspora. I mean, hey, listen. So Ukrainian history was written by, off the diaries of a man that went and reported on the famine, and of course by the diaspora, Ukrainian diaspora. So Ukrainian immigrants elsewhere because they had to. Gotta have bandera. Like, actually, it can't go anywhere without bandera these days. It is like, it's really sad, but it's also very, very funny. Adding that before where you live sounds post-apocalyptic. I kind of like it. Oh, the Texas. I mean, listen, you live in the United States where the actually suits, but the thing is, it's like quite upsetting because the United States is kind of in trouble right now. So I mean, yeah, the Texas. But yeah, I was just finding it. Wait, wait, I found more. The next day, my uncle, the last devastated, breadless. The next day, the last devastated, breadless village he passed through, his uncle, uh, before leaving Russia, was Krasny Hutor, shelled by Ukraine last September and reportedly attacked again by Ukrainian militia in a cross-border raid on the 20th of May this year. Oh, sweet summer propaganda child. So this is not even covert, as in like he needs to put bandera in there, okay? He needs to put Ukrainian militia in there. I'm surprised that he didn't mention Azov. Like, really, I'm actually gonna do command find and I'm gonna see if there is Azov anywhere in this article. Aw, 0 out of 0. But oh my god, bandera 4 times, nationalists 11 times. I'm gonna do the Ukraine 4 times. Such a missed opportunity. I know. Like, I feel like it would really tie it together if he also mentioned Azov in here. I honestly like. I want to take this. I want to make a whole video on this article. Like, I genuinely need to send it to. I need to send it to a bunch of my friends, like Starsky and Anna from Ukraine, uh because this is just I'm actually doing it as we speak because oh my god, like this is a holy grail. This is so I want to make a whole video on this. Mm, 1 sec. Sorry, I really had to send this to Starsky. I think he's going to just like love this and absolutely I know this seems ridiculous and I'm kind of freaking out about this like stupid article, but it's like, you guys, I can't believe this exists. It has everything in it. This article was published in 2023 and it was published by great nephew of Gareth Jones, who was a journalist who published the story, who broke the news or broke the story about Stalin starving people in Ukraine and in parts of Russia, but mostly in Ukraine. And it is just his great nephew. You know, like, it's funny because he's like, oh, my great uncle's heritage is being bastardized, and it's like, honey, I think you are the one doing the bastardizing of the heritage. Like, honestly, I feel like if he was alive, he would slap you across the face, honey, and he would be throwing some sweet tea at you. Sorry, I could be saying this with a Welsh accent. I don't know how to do it. I don't know why I'm going into Southern, and also I don't know how to say it in Welsh, so we're just gonna have that. Just like, you know, they're ancient. It was 100 years ago, so I'm just like using a vintage way to speak. No, he says great uncle. He says great uncle. Zach, he does say great uncle. Actually, oh my gosh, Zach, are you busy? Can I bring you up? Were you here through this entire rant about were you here through this entire rant about this article? I genuinely would love to discuss this with you, and I feel like the people on YouTube might not, like, you guys might not know who Zach is, but Zach, oh my gosh, yes, please come, Zach, like, just request to come on, and I will accept you. But so, you guys on YouTube, if you don't know who Zach is an American man from Ohio, from Cleveland, Ohio, or, you know, Ohio Oblast of Ukraine, because this is where the largest communities of Ukrainian diaspora reside. He learned Ukrainian fluently, and he speaks Ukrainian so well and with so little kind of like accent that Ukrainians actually, I think to this day, but mostly in the beginning of his channel, were like, oh, you're just a Ukrainian who's pretending to be American for views. And the man is like American. The only Ukrainian thing about him is his love for borscht, his boyfriend, and his boyfriend's mother. They're both Ukrainian. But I'm your twin, basically. People say the same about you. Yeah, he's kind of like, he's me, but in reverse, right? Like, I come off incredibly American and he comes off incredibly Ukrainian. People don't believe him that he's not Ukrainian, and people in the beginning of all of this, or at least like trolls and like whatever, were like, you are an American CIA agent pretending to have something to do with Ukraine. And I'm like, yeah, sure, comrade. Anyways, but so this is Zach, and I really want him to come on, but he is in a bath, apparently, so he might take his time to do so. But I feel like his commentary about this article would be just plain fascinating, and I think oh, sorry, ow, I'm so, wait, I need to stretch. And commentary from literally, like, it would be just fascinating. And if you guys were here for this article, then you would still enjoy it, because Zach, funny, he's funny. I'll be on soon, I swear, because I cannot wait to discuss. I actually, maybe instead of putting you on TikTok, I can put you on YouTube. I can send you, Zach. Do I have you on Telegram, or do I have you on WhatsApp or Signal or anything of the sorts? Because I can send you an invite to join YouTube, and you can do that from your phone conveniently. And that way, because it's easier to kind of like, you know, show you to TikTok through YouTube than it is to show you to YouTube through TikTok. Although that's debatable. Maybe I can do that. But Zach's commentary would be really funny, I think. And also, you guys, I'm so sorry that this is like not the news we're literally discussing. Because I think, like, the thing is, because I do the briefs, I will be doing the news as well. But because I do the briefs, I also feel like maybe these conversational lives with like deep dives into like a specific topic might be better right now. But you tell me what you think. maybe thank you so much, Adventures with Crystals. Thank you, genuinely. I think that this might be kind of actually more beneficial. You tell me what you think. Also, while Zach is getting his bearings straight, before I can read him this fantastic article, about the whole world of propaganda. I also realized that since I was just talking about segments that I do, I want to create this podcast, and I've pitched it to a certain news media here, and they were so up until the final stage. A lot of people in that media were very interested in this podcast, but in the final stage, they decided that their target audience, has changed to Trump supporters and people who voted for Trump, because obviously this is what we need to appeal to now as Ukrainians. And I am obviously not the person to appeal to Trump supporters. So this podcast is not going to be happening because they're interested in a different type of content at the moment. Now, I really like the idea of this podcast, and I really want it to happen. But I'm going to be figuring out how to do that, because producing this podcast would be $1,400 a month, which I don't have. Sorry, I just got an email, and I was like, what is this email? Because I'm obviously not half blind, but I'm like, yeah. So you're definitely not the one. Yeah. So the reason why it's so much to produce this podcast is because, well, it would actually, I don't know how YouTubers do this, because you need to rent under normal circumstances. Also, who is it? So I know who to not watch. No, I'm not going to be bashing Ukrainian media. I think that I understand their strategy, because they really need to try and appeal to the United States, and I understand why. So I know that it's not like they're trying to, just say specific narratives and whatever. They're just trying to find a way to communicate to the people that have not been interested in them for a very long time. So they're trying to I don't know, find their footing in that way. So I'm not going to be bashing them, and I'm not going to be saying who, but that's kind of it's just not in there, whatever. But anyways, so point is, I don't know how YouTubers do this, because under normal circumstance, you need to rent a studio, you need to buy equipment, you need to pay a video editor, right? So in my case, I can only I don't need a studio. I can record the podcast here. I actually really love this background. I think it's really nice. I can set up better lighting, because I have that, and I can set up a better camera because I also have that. This is just this is basically a GoPro that I'm talking to you through right now. But I have the equipment, right? So I don't need to spend money on that right anymore. Then also I don't need a studio, because I have a studio. So I just need a video editor. And so even in Ukraine, video editors are charging a lot of money, because the good video editors work for the West and do freelance work for the West. The video editors that are they don't cost a lot, but they also want to just sort of get the job done and get paid. They're not interested in creative input or output or whatever. If you guys have followed me for a long time, have a video editor. I know a video editor. They were very close to me. They're my family. And I would like to do this with them, because I also know that they're a very good video editor, and they would give me a significant discount on what the normal rate would be for doing videos of this format. But it's sort of I don't know how people do this. I don't know how people get this done. I don't know how people invest in this, because it's just wow. And the thing is, I don't want to do this podcast unless I can have it edited well, and unless I can have it done well, because I know that it's not going to work if it is half-assed. because I have a lot of things that are half-assed on my channel because I don't know how to edit and I don't have the time because I'm also working full-time. And I know that they're not resonating with enough audiences and they're not getting out to enough people that should hear it because of also production value and stuff. And if I'm even trying to do this myself, like it's never going to come out because, as you guys know, sometimes it's hard for me to go live because I don't have time. So I'm facing this dilemma right now. But I kind of like, part of me like wants to tell you the idea of the podcast, and part of me like doesn't want to like say it on screen and have it like recorded until it comes out, because I think that it's just sort of like I don't want someone to take this and do it in like a way that actually isn't going to be bringing any like any usefulness to the cause. Thank you, Scooter. Thank you so much. So lots of little things to iron out, lots of little kinks to iron out. But, you know, hope it's an Apple podcast. Yeah, it's going to be like, oh my God. Okay, now I'm on YouTube. Zach, let me, so I don't need you to be on YouTube. I need you, oh, I have your Instagram. Okay. You're very real. I prefer it. Well, I mean, I just don't know how to be anything else. I'm very bad at filtering. It's partially ADHD and partially autism spectrum. Okay, Zach, I'm sending you a link to StreamYards so you can come on to the thing. I'm also going to send you a link to this article because you should have it and you should spread it far and wide to people that can laugh at it as much as we can. I sent you the link on Instagram chat to the thing, and also I'm sending you a link to the freaking article because it's fantastic. And value your review is important. Oh, thank you, Doug. Same here, full recognition. Aw, thank you, guys. I wish you safety and good health from Japan. See you soon. Oh, KT, that's so awesome. Oh my gosh, Japan, that. Aw. I'm actually very curious about how this is being viewed in Japan, how Russia's war is being viewed in Japan. This is so curious. Can I pick your brain about this at some point? Can I DM you about this at some point? I'm so curious. Привет, Чернигів. Oh, Elvin Archer, hi. Okay, I'm wondering if Zach is. Oh yes, you got it. Hello, Zach.
How are you? It's nice to see. Oh, this app follows you. I'm on an iPad and it follows my face. I like that.
I think it's not the app. I think it's the iPad that follows your face. I've had that happen to me before, and I thought it was so weird, but it is what it is. Nice. So, you guys, for those of you on TikTok, I'm going to show you Zach just so you know who we're talking to. But then I'm probably not going to be able to actually show you to him for for the entirety of the situation. This is Zach.
Hello, everyone.
Oh, you have a dog.
I do, Vochnik. He's a Ukrainian-speaking dog.
And his name is Flame. That's so cute. Oh my God. Okay, is it because he's dark? Okay.
Yes.
That's lovely. So I was just kind of like minding my own business, and I was like kind of just like watching a movie, watching a movie on Amazon Prime, which Mr. Jones is the movie. It's fantastic. It's about the journalist who broke the story about Holodomor, right? And he went to Russia. He like almost died. He was blackmailed. Also, he was like censored by the British government. He was like, they were like, don't post this because we don't want a conflict with Russia. Like, even if there is famine, like you shouldn't be doing this, whatever. So and I mean, like, this is a well-known fact. And there was Walter Duranty. I'm sure you've heard about him, who was a Holodomor denier, who was a liar, and like all this stuff. So anyways, you should watch the movie. The movie is great. But so in real life, this journalist has a great nephew, right? Who wrote an article in 2023 about how Ukrainian nationalists are misusing his great uncle's diary to prove their nationalist agenda of creating Ukrainian history that didn't exist before. He also, in this entire article, and I mean, like, there was Bandera mentioned, there was OUN-UPA mentioned, there was Ukrainian militia that attacked Russia in 2023 mentioned as well. Like, there is every bit of propaganda that one can freaking imagine mentioned in this one article in the Voice of Wales, because they're Welsh, right? And it's so funny because it's so evident that this dude is cash poor. Russia offered him money because he is the great nephew of this person. So it's like, incredible witness.
I need to see his bank records for sure. There's some offshore account in the Seychelles sending him money.
I've never seen anything so obviously just bad.
I just opened the article, and the first thing I see just scrolling through the web, Ukrainian ultra nationalists from the diaspora. What?
Yeah. Oh, so basically, Ukrainian history and was created through Ukrainian diaspora that lives like abroad, right? Who funded to film this movie, Mr. Jones, about his uncle, to make it seem like the famine was only in Ukraine, but in fact it was everywhere. And the reason why Ukrainians were dying of the famine is not because Stalin was killing them, but because them bastards were not okay with collectivization. Okay?
Not okay with the illegal seizure of their land?
Yeah, and their crops and everything. Yeah, they're just bastards. They just did not want to accept collectivization, like, what the hell? Assholes. And then so Ukrainian diaspora found the diaries of this man, and they decided, oh my gosh, this is how we're going to whitewash Bandera. Don't know what Bandera has to do with this at all, because he was not even anywhere near like active in 1933. Ukraine, like Banderaville, which is where I'm from, didn't join. It wasn't forced into the Soviet Union until 1939. So we were not even like this was not a thing. This was not a thing. But so, anyways, his uncle was his diaries were single-handedly responsible for the Ukrainian diaspora nationalistic ambitions, and they're basically them creating Ukrainian history and paying to produce it, and whitewashing Bandera, of course, because there is no, you can never write a truthful article about Ukraine without mentioning Bandera at least 4 times. I did do the command find thing. It's 4 times.
I'm just being triggered by how he mentioned, like, on Holodomor Memorial Day, he's writing like the Great Soviet Famine. The Great Soviet Famine?
Yeah. Also, my favorite part is that, like, Yushchenko was mentioned there as, like, the 2004 president who decided to finally create history for the newly independent Ukraine. Ukraine has been newly independent for 13 years at that point, right? And apparently we had nothing to show for ourselves. We had no history. We had nothing going on. So he was like, I'm going to create the National Holodomor Foundation, and we're going to write up some history. And instead of, like, actually, like, trying to, like, come up with cool history, as in, like, we've done something cool, like, whatever. He decided, I am going to say that we were killed off by Stalin. This is gonna be our claim to fame, you guys. And I'm just like, like, you genuinely should read this article afterwards, like, just the whole thing. I did, and it's like, I cannot believe that this exists. Honestly, it's just
I can't. Yeah, there's so much here to unpack, because I just saw, again, scrolling through, and it's like many of the ultranationalists joined the existing diaspora in Canada, and some even went to Wales. Like, he's personally fought the descendants of ultranationalists who have used his uncle's great uncle's memory to create some form of alternate universe. This is ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, scroll. I just want you to scroll and just, like, because I was scrolling and I was reading out my favorite things that were standing out. Maybe, like, your favorite things that are standing out are going to be a lot more, maybe you will discover something I haven't.
Their family became split and broken, arguably like Ukraine itself today.
Yeah, because of Ukrainians. Their family was split and broken because of Ukrainians.
I'm so glad he can really relate to the plight Ukrainians are going through right now.
I know. And I'm so, we were just talking about how I'm so surprised that there is no mention of Azov, because it would we really
that'd be the cherry on top. That's like the missing cherry.
However, I do think that this qualifies as the mention of Azov, which is the next day, the last devastated, breadless village he passed through before leaving Russia was Krasny Hutor, shelled by Ukraine last September and reportedly attacked again by Ukrainian militia in a cross-border raid on the 20th of May of this year.
Are we sure it wasn't the Russian militia, though? Because I'm really interested if it was the
It's also like, no. He's writing this in 2023, and he's referring to a Ukrainian militia cross-border raid.
Oh, wait, yeah. It's the military. You mean the military? I love how he tries to diminish the Ukrainian military to being a militia when at this point,
but you know, the funniest thing is that even the Russian propaganda is not doing it anymore, because they cannot like seriously go out there and like call Ukrainian military militia when referring to their actions in 2023. But this man is like, in 2023, Ukrainian militia did a cross-border raid with Russia. A cross-border raid? Sorry, sir. Ukrainian militia, Ukrainian military, the armed forces of Ukraine. Thank you very much. Like, please do bow a little bit to them. Like, show some respect. They are a little too busy defending the front lines of Ukraine that is being actually invaded by Russian. I mean, I guess I can call the prisoners and the cannibals that they have released into the wild to fight for Russia militia. But, you know, of course, no. I mean, they have nothing better to do but do cross-border raids on Russia. And, like, I don't know. I'm surprised he didn't say that Ukrainian militia was stealing fridges and, like, you know, killing Russian babies. That would have.
I'm just interested, like, when was the Kharkiv counteroffensive where they took back tons of land? Well, near Kiev, it was a lot sooner, closer to the beginning of the war. But when did this Ukrainian militia take back 50% of the land that was occupied by the Russian military? I'm just interested in when this militia.
September 2022, and this man refers to Ukraine last September and reportedly attacked again. So yes, he's literally talking about the Kharkiv counteroffensive, because he's writing this in 2023 and he's referring to September 2022. So he's talking about the Kharkiv counteroffensive as a cross-border raid conducted by the Ukrainian militia. And it's funny because he was saying that he was like writing letters to the Welsh parliament, basically like urging them to not recognize Holodomor as a genocide, because, you know, like there was no historical digging done at all. And he was probably giving them all of this, like all of these things as the reasoning why. And I'm pretty sure that whoever was sitting there in the Welsh parliament reading this was like, so you guys, if you're from Wales, do you know if like mental health care in Wales is covered by insurance? Because this person was like, where can I submit this? Where is the nearest mental institution where I can institutionalize this man?
This is just absolutely wild. The lengths you have. I'm interested in the extent of the Russian information campaign that went into finding this man. They're like, I need you to go through the genealogy of this man. All of the other descendants are pro-Ukrainian, but can you just find the great nephew, one of them, and offer them a bunch of money and see what he writes?
I can like assure, like, I think that with 90% certainty, this guy probably who wrote this article is probably one of his like relatives that is literally like an alcoholic and is not making money and was like, this is my opportunity to make money. Because who else? First of all, it's Wales. Like, people in Wales are quite educated, and people in Wales are also very knowledgeable about Ukraine. Wales is very supportive of Ukraine. And it's like, to find this man who is so incredibly severely just like head bumped, you did have to do quite a bit of research. I also, I'm going to read you my favorite bit that I already read to people before, but this. Okay, through the web, Ukrainian ultranationalists from the diaspora soon became aware of all of this and got in touch with the family. They immediately saw that Gareth was a key witness and his diaries crucial evidence for a famine, the existence of which their political foe, the Soviet Union, had consistently denied. Their discovery of Gareth coincided with the start of a memory management campaign begun in 2004 by the then president Viktor Yushchenko, in which he sought to provide the newly independent Ukraine with a new national history.
Oh my God. Just,
I also
we need something. We just need something. So they just made it up. Let's not forget the books of the dead in the Holodomor Museum that have been written for decades of millions of people. But yeah, let's just make that up. Right.
Yeah, also, like, I mean, he's like, oh, there was literally no historical digging done in order to confirm Holodomor. There is no evidence. There is no anything. It's like there is. Okay, most of the countries in the world at this point have recognized Holodomor as a genocide of the Ukrainian people. Do you think they just did that based on like your uncle's freaking diaries?
Right. That was the only evidence?
Yeah.
Not survivorship stories, not the refugees, not...
We also have... Oh? Wait, one sec. Something just bada boomed.
Bada boomed where?
Like, close.
Oh, to you.
Okay. Yeah. Wait, something just bada boomed, and I heard the bada boom. And the bada boom was one of those bada booms that isn't like, you know, it's, sorry, I'm like making this, I'm turning this into baby language, but it's just easier to process this way. So a Shahed drone either hit something and exploded, or it was intercepted. But this explosion didn't sound like an interception. It sounded more like a hit, because when it's an interception, you just hear the sound, but you don't necessarily hear impact, because obviously it's just debris. But when a Shahed drone hits something, it's like a more, it's kind of like a, when
like
it's being intercepted, it's a higher octave, right? Like boom. And when it's like, and when it hits something, it's a lower boom, because it's like it's enclosed versus in the sky, right?
Yeah.
And it feels like a bit of a blast. So I think something was just hit, because it sounded like a boom, and I can't find. I don't know if the air raid alert is still on, because, well, you know, I like to live in the edge.
Well, it says that Kiev is... No, well, that was like 2 hours ago.
Yeah, but our air alerts have been running for 5 hours recently, because they're just Shaheds. Like, there are lots of them, and they just keep kind of like, you know, it's like they come into Kyiv, they leave, they come back into Kyiv, they leave, and it's just kind of, you know, not very smart to turn the alert on and off all the time, I suppose.
Well, I don't have Twitter anymore, so I can't check live updates.
Okay, I'm gonna say Kyiv air alert. Let's see. Air raid map of Ukraine. Yeah, Kyiv is under air raid right now. Okay, so yeah, that was likely a bada boom. Now I'm interested in. So here's another thing. Also, like, if there is air defense working, they usually say on all of these OSINT channels that it's air defense working, right? And if it hits something, then all of the OSINT channels are just quiet, because you're not supposed to, you know, release the information, which is why it makes, you know, I feel like something was hit, because it's awfully quiet.
Yeah, because when they shoot it down, it's almost like, you know, they say like "zbito" or something, and it's like a... Let's see.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not seeing anything on like Kiev Operativny or anything.
No, I'm not really seeing. Yeah, I think everyone is just kind of being quiet on, yeah, which well, I mean, hey, I'm alive. Yeah. Yeah, I was, you know, you weren't here yesterday, but I was telling people that I have 2 sets of new neighbors. Both are couples, and one is always arguing, and the other one is always partaking in some other business. And so sometimes when there is, like, they're making up, and sometimes when there is an air raid going on, it's like really hard to understand if it's their bed hitting the wall, or if it's like, or if it's air defense working. And I'm just kind of like, can you please just like refrain from doing this during air raids, because this is really screwing with my perception of reality. Like, I'm really happy for you. Like, you seem to have a very healthy relationship, or you had just moved in together for the first time, and this is like your honeymoon period, which is what it seems like, because the amount of
it's a bit much. I think you need to gift them a bed bumper, like a piece of foam that sticks to the back of your bed with a note saying, when you are making up, we'll say it that way, let's just say that I'm waking up because I think bombs are going off. So if you could please put this on the back of your bed, so at least half the time I know what's happening. Thank you.
Actually, this is a great idea. I know someone was like, you should just like, you should go over there, knock on the door, and like make, introduce yourself. And it's just like, I don't necessarily want to see what they look like. So this is actually a great idea. It's sort of like, I could just like leave them a little sticky note and just be like, hey, I'm so happy your relationship is doing well. I mean, like, I really mean it. I'm not being sarcastic, but like, can you please not fuck during during air raid alerts? Because like, I don't know if it's or if it's like heads being shut down, this really is difficult.
Can't tell if it's a pressure wave or if my wall is vibrating. Like, I really need to know the difference. This is very important. And that's a very indirect American way. You don't have to tell them who you are. You don't have to tell them what apartment you live in. You can just...
Yeah, and maybe like, stick some condoms to it, just to sort of like be like, listen, hey, I am really I am a proponent of this happening, right? Good for you. Like, I'm totally not being sarcastic, right? This is like, here, practice safe intercourse, but just like, please don't practice it during air raids
too often.
No, not too often. You could do anytime, really, just not like during air raids, and like preferably not at like 3 a.m. during air raids, because at that point it's just like, it's really, I'm already delirious, right? Like,
Oy, oy, oy.
I mean, it adds excitement. Oh yes, it adds a lot of excitement to my life to have to figure out whether it's man-made or Shahed technology made.
Man-made.
Whether it's man-made bada booms or inanimate object made bada booms. Zaki,
how are you?
I'm good, but I mean, I just got over bronchitis, and I'm looking at I've been going to bed at 11 for like months now, right? And then I had bronchitis, and I took meds, and they like completely knocked me out, and I woke up at 5 p.m. the next day. And now I'm having a really bad situation with my sleep schedule, as you might be able to tell. It's 3 a.m, and I'm still not sleeping. But I just realized it's 3 a.m, and I should probably go at least like relocate myself to bed, so there is like a semblance of sort of winding down. This is really bad, because normally when this happens to me, this lasts for months, and I really like, while this is very convenient for all of you Americans, because then I go live at unholy hours, and for you these are good hours because you're off work. I am just like, I overslept work today. I was supposed to be on hair and makeup at like 10, and I woke up at 10:01, and I texted my producer, and I was like, hi. So how I had bronchitis and I was recovering from it. So the fastest I can be there is like 40 minutes. Good thing that there was no one else recording for like the next 3 hours, and there was no one for hair and makeup, so it actually was fine. No one noticed anything. The camera people just went and got breakfast.
So this is your new full-time job?
Yeah.
And it's where? Or you don't say?
No, I do say. It's UATV English.
Yulia,
what?
Do you know this about me?
What?
Do you know anything? I worked at UATV English as my first career job in my life for 4 years as the head editor of the English team.
What?
We are now colleagues. Tell anyone there about me. Well, I don't know if the teams have changed, because they closed UATV English for a long time, and then the law said
teams have changed.
Yeah, they said that they actually couldn't change it. They couldn't actually close it, and went through litigation, and I'm so happy it opened back up.
Okay, so Ukrainians hate it because there is like they're struggling with like views and stuff, which is where I come in to sort of like help with content and things like that. But also the thing is, like, because it's a government owned channel, right? There is a lot of bureaucracy behind it, where like you can't just delete a channel and redo it. You have to keep doing what you're doing. So there is quite a there are quite a few things, but like, oh my gosh, Zaki,
we are colleagues. I'm not kidding when I say one of my Telegram channels is UATV Editors Chat. Whoa,
is it still going on?
Yes, I mean, September 17th was the last time we talked because my colleague came
Wait,
to
who is in this chat? Sorry.
These are, I don't think anybody works at UATV anymore, but you know, all their names in my phone is UATV. But ask around, see if people know me there. I would be very interested if anybody stayed because I was there during the Poroshenko Zelensky, you know, beautiful, wonderful election where the control of UATV shifted from Pятый Kanal, which is the Poroshenko owned channel, to Zelensky's multitude of producers and editors. And they didn't know what to do with us. And they couldn't fire us by law because the international workers were all fully legal. We had full contracts, we had full pay, we had, you know, the whole 9 yards. And so we didn't.
Can we talk about this?
This is a full conversation with you, but I'm so glad that I found out that you're my colleague now. UATV English was my favorite job I've ever had in my entire life for 4 years. Beautiful.
I'm actually so curious to hear more about this, but also like, do you have part-time availability? We like need more people.
If you want, well, I don't live in Ukraine, but if you need voiceovers, listen, I'm always here. That was my job for 4 years, was voiceover for UATV.
Oh, interesting.
I'll send you some of my old sujet. Is it still in the old building near? It's on the Pereulok. What is it called?
Well, we are not going to say this, you know, but it starts with a K. Yes.
Yes, thank you. Wow, for real, what a small world they're writing. Yes, that's it was one of my favorite places to work, and it's wonderful. Like when did you start?
A while, like a couple of months ago.
And do you like it?
Yeah, I mean, like, I really like the team that I'm working with. I mean, as in, like, I don't necessarily, I love the team. I love what I do. I don't like, but this is standard, right? It's like anytime you work, especially in Ukraine, if you work with the government, it's just like you have to get approval of like 55 people before it actually gets approved, and it's so long. Yeah. And it's like if you need to make minor changes that involve like passwords or involve like logging in somewhere or involve doing something like that, it takes 17 million years. And my team is great. Like I absolutely love most of the teams, every team that I've like worked with so far has been great. It's just more of like ironing out kinks and little things like editing and stuff like that, because obviously it's not like every segment, it's not like United 24 that has like a huge budget, right, and can do like whatever they want. It's very different from that. Their budget is not huge at all. It's very limited.
Are you still using Octopus and Edius for the editing programs?
No.
Oh, thank God. Okay, so there has been some improvement.
No, there has been quite a bit of improvement. I mean, like it kind of functions like a TV studio now in a lot of ways. But it's also there is like still, as in like, you know, there will be one overwhelmed editor with like a lot of projects. We actually just got a fantastic editor, and she's amazing for like the projects that she does she does projects for the English speaking department, and she's great, and I love her. And she's just, first of all, she's very creative. She wants improvements. She wants to like make videos good. You guys who have been watching The Brief on The Gaze, you know, they have a subsidiary channel called The Gaze, right?
Yes.
This is where most of my videos come out. Yes, The Gaze. And I used to say The Gaze, G-A-Z-E at the end, but, you know, I would be like, subscribe to The Gaze, G-A-Z-E, but you can also subscribe to The Gaze, you know, because I find it to be a perfect sign-off.
Hilarious. Yes. Perfect marketing.
No, because it's like, I mean, hey, work it, you know. But oh my gosh, we have to do this at some point. Yes.
I would like to get you to go to sleep, but when I heard that, I could not hold back. That's amazing. I'm so happy for you. I worked on so many of their projects, the cooking show, I mean, it was great. It was so fun. Oh my gosh, the gays, guys, and theys love it. Perfect. But yes, get some sleep. Fix your sleep schedule, get to work on time. I hope you're doing the 4 days on, 4 days off schedule, or the 7 days on, 7 days off schedule, or is it 9 to 5? Because if you're doing 4 on, 4 off, it's amazing.
No, I mean my schedule is different because I am a host, right? So it's like it's
Oh,
and like I do a lot of work from home as well.
nice.
Because like I will record and then I'll have to like do shot lists and all of this stuff, which like it's oh, the air raid is over. I mean, okay, so there was a bada boom, yay! Not okay. But yeah, no, I mean I work from home quite a bit. I actually do need to. I need to. I need
Well, we will talk. You go to bed. That alarm that the air raid is off is a sign that says go to sleep. No more issues. Probably, maybe, hopefully tonight. Knock on wood. Cross our fingers.
to.
Hey, good night. Nice talking.
Nice talking to you too, Zach.
You, everyone. This was great.
Yeah, I'll have you here again soon.
100%.
Oh, all right, guys. Well, I'm gonna go to bed. I hope that this was not like. I hope that you enjoyed this, and I hope that this isn't. I don't know how you feel about this format. The format is obviously going to be partially news and partially like kind of in-depth discussions about a specific topic. But I hope that this is something that you like because I think I'm going to be doing half this, half that. Okay. Bye, guys.